From Fox 8 Sports, this is the Overtime Podcast.
From the Fox 8 studios, the brand new Fox 8 studios here in New Orleans, this is the Fox 8 Overtime Podcast. I'm your host, Sean Fazende, riding shotgun as he does each and every podcast. This is Andre Johnson.
Junior.
Do not forget the juniors. Very important to remember the JR at the end of the name. Before we get into today's content, be sure to like, to share, to rate, to review. If you are watching us on YouTube, hit that subscribe button, get the bell notification for when we drop that fire content. Also, hello to the Gulf Coast Sports Entertainment Network. Glad you have found us here. It is Friday in the city of New Orleans, day before the weekend. Big weekend ahead for the Saints. It's been a big week all the way around just for us in general. You're probably still getting used to all this, as are we. With this brand new set that we have. We got the new cameras working, so it's very, it's a fun time here at Fox 8. And we move right along in the NFL calendar. It's a big weekend for the Saints. Or they've already started rookie minicamp, but we can't get there until Saturday. So I will be out there to check that out. But also, we really got a chance to look at the Saints roster because it's kind of starting to take shape with the draft over and free agency done. So we're going to get into that as well. But first things first, how you feeling today?
I'm feeling good. You know, you can't be upset on a Friday. You know, great weather outside. I went to Cam Jordan Day yesterday, so that was a lot of fun. We may touch on that later in this episode, but we've got another fun topic.
We do have another fun topic. I had a good day. I beat the weather. I was able to time it perfectly. I was so proud of myself. I got my mulch done in my garden.
There we go.
Underrated activity, but I was very proud of myself. So I got that done. I caught that little time in between the rains. So it's been a good week for me as well. All right, you alluded to it, so let's get right to it. Big picture today. Monday, we spoke about the Saints roster, how it different position groups where we felt they were the strongest. Well, we went up this week. Monday, we're going down today on this Friday because we got to look at where the Saints are the weakest because it's very important because obviously you're only as strong as your weakest links. And honestly, Andre, big picture-wise, the Saints have some question marks on this roster, and we're going to break them down here today.
Yeah, you know, I'm not going to lie to you, Sean. It was a little difficult on Monday when we were trying to rank the Saints' 5 best position groups. Now today, when we did the 5 worst position groups, it was a little easier, you know? As we were looking at it, so we're going to count 5 all the way down to 1, with 1 being the absolute worst position.
So you want to be number 5 on this list?
Exactly, yeah. Well, ideally, you'd rather not be on the list at all. But if you're on the list, you'd rather be number 5 because 1 is what we think is the worst.
Yeah. 1 will be the biggest weakness, the biggest concern that we have obviously going in. All right. Last week we went 5. We went each one back and forth, but we only had 1 in common. Today, we got quite a few in common. Yeah. So the only one we don't have in common is number 5. Let's just start there. How about my number 5, I guess, weakest, so spot on the roster is the safety position. I know you had them number 5 on your...
I think they were 3 for me on my strongest.
Okay, so this is where he and I differ. I just look at this roster when you talk about this position group with Tyrann Mathieu, Jordan Reed.
Justin Reed.
Justin Reed, I keep saying Jordan. Ugo Amade, the 5th round pick from a couple years ago. Jordan Howden.
Jordan Howden.
And I found out today it's not Jonas Sanker, it's Jonas.
Jonas? Oh, okay.
It's Jonas Sanker, so like Jonas Valanciunas.
Yeah, not like the Jonas Brothers.
Look, obviously I love Tyrann. I think Tyrann, and this could have gone either way. This could have been the 5th strength. This is the 5th. There's only 10 position groups we're doing here.
Right.
At least I'm doing here. So I had it number 5 just because I like the top 2 guys with Mathieu and Reed. Sanker's got to come in at some point. I think he's going to be a run stuffing guy. I don't think he's going to be a coverage guy. Jordan Howden's a guy I think the last regime really wanted it to work with him, and it just never happened. He was a guy that certainly they thought had some center field skills, thought had some issues with, thought he'd be a guy they could count on. It felt like his rookie year he was getting to that point. But this past year, it just never quite worked out at a position where they needed him to work out. And so that was disappointing, obviously. Ugo Amade is a guy that can play safety, can play nickel. I think he probably ends up at the nickel position. Bradford is more of a futures guy, practice squad type player. Davison is an undrafted rookie. So I don't think this is a bad group at all. In fact, maybe after I get my eyeballs on them when OTA start, maybe I'll think differently about this group. But if they stand here right now, I have them at number 5, the safety position.
Yeah, you know, when I look at I like the safeties. I had them at number 3 on my best position list, mainly because I'm looking at the 2 starters. Justin Reed was probably the biggest move you made this offseason. And then you look at Tyrann Mathieu. You can't talk about Tyrann without addressing the fact that he probably only has 2-3 years left in his career. Maybe 1, you never know. That's up to Tyrann. But when you look at the defense, Tyrann Mathieu has been arguably the biggest playmaker ever since he got to New Orleans. Yeah. Last 3 seasons, he's been here 3 seasons. He led the Saints in interceptions in each of those 3 seasons. So Tyrann, despite his age, is still making plays. Justin Reed, we saw him in Kansas City. We know he's a big playmaker. Now, the concern that you can't ignore at that position is the depth. And when you look behind those 2, you know, you mentioned Jordan Howden. Dennis Allen he was almost begging Jordan Howden
to work
out.
He wanted him to win it.
I remember you guys were in California for training camp, and he was specifically talking about that safety position. And he said, we are looking for a guy to jump out ahead of the pack and say, hey, this is my job, and take it. And really nobody was able to take it. Jordan Howden wasn't able to take it. The guy, I guess, who set himself apart the most was probably Will Harris. He's not back this season. So, you know, you got to see a step up from Jordan Howden. You got to see Jonas Sanker, you know, play an immediate role in, you know, this defense in the secondary. But I think you've got 2 solid starters, so that's why they were on my list of best positions. But you do want to see a little more from the depth in that position.
Look, if it were just going top to bottom strength, 1 through 10, this would be my number 6. It's number 5 on this list, but it'd be my number 6 right behind the running back room, and that can probably flip-flop back and forth. So what was your number 5?
Oh, I'm throwing a curveball. My number 5,
here he goes. All right.
Special teams.
Okay.
I'm going special teams for the number 5 because when you look at kicker and punter, Blake Grupe, he's a young kicker. He doesn't necessarily move me. Like if you're going to rank the top 5, top 10 kickers, I don't know if you include Blake Grupe in that. Matthew Hayball, another young punter, still has a lot of experience to get, but there are better punters out there than Matthew Hayball. And then they're in the kick return game. There's nobody who really makes you, you know, fear kicking to them. The Saints, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I looked it up earlier today, they haven't had a kickoff return touchdown since 2017. It's been almost a decade.
I think that was Alvin that did it too.
Yeah.
Was that Alvin? Yeah,
almost a decade.
Against the Rams. I was out there in L.A. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Since the Saints had a kick return touchdown. In that span, the last 8 years, they've had 2 punt return touchdowns. I believe both from Rashid Shaheed.
Rashid Shaheed, yeah.
So this isn't a team that has a lot of dynamic plays in the special teams. And I think when you're in a tight ball game, when it's 20-17 and your kick returner can break one open, when you can bring your kicker in from 57 and know that he can nail that kick, it's little things, but it makes a huge difference in tight games. So worst units, for my number 5, I'm going to put special teams there.
Well, let me throw this curveball at you since you threw me one. There's a kicker available right now. Would you take it? I mean, if everything cleared, would you take a look at Justin Tucker?
You know, if legally and
I mean, this is the same organization that was the first in line to go after Deshaun Watson.
That is true. That is true, and he's in a similar situation as Deshaun Watson. So if you can feel like legally he's not going to get in trouble and he will be available for you this season, Justin Tucker, I know he's coming off a really off year.
He had a horrible year last year, yes.
Before last year, he was considered one of the greatest kickers of all time that we've seen, at least in this generation.
Yeah.
So if you can get the legal stuff cleared, Justin Tucker could start on this team tomorrow.
He really could. Indoors.
And I take him off my list.
That's something to just keep in the back of mind, because I bet a lot of teams are looking at that and just waiting for it to clear. It's the kicker. You don't need him here for training camp if you had to.
Right.
Just something to keep in mind. I don't know how it's going to go, but I do know they didn't have any problem with Deshaun Watson, at least in pursuit of him. So if it were clear with Justin Tucker, it's just something to think about. All right. You want to go simultaneously with this one to number 4?
Yeah, number 4.
Okay, number 4 is the wide receiver room. Again, this is the 5 biggest weaknesses. So number 4 on this list is the wide receiver room. It is no secret. Everyone has said it. This team needs a big wide receiver. There's no doubt about that. They need a big wide receiver. And everyone has made that clear because you have enough bodies in this room to be productive, which is why they're 4 and not up higher on this weakness list, because Look, Chris Olave is an incredibly productive player. I mean, his production has gone up. I know he had the unfortunate concussion last year, but if he can stay healthy, I think he's a great. He does what he does well. I think he's a high-end 2. I don't think he'll ever be a 1. I think he's a 2. But I do think he's a guy that you know what you're going to get from him if he's healthy. Rashid Shaheed, again, you know what you're going to get from him if he's healthy. He had the unfortunate injury last year, and that took a huge toll on the entire offense, and really Clint Kubiak and all those guys, they struggle without those guys. Then you bring in Cedric Wilson. Bub Means is an interesting name because he is a big-ish receiver, but he's just unproven. So that's certainly someone to watch as well. You have, is this Dixon? This is an undrafted free agent. You have Tyree. You have Mason Tipton, Dante Pettis. And then a big signing this offseason was Brandon Cooks, who I think still has a little bit left in the tank. He's at a different place in his career than when he was here the first time around from 2014 to 2016. You also have Kevin Austin Jr. as well. So I think the overall production from this group can be decent. I really do. I think it can be decent. But there's not enough like physical diversity, if you will, because it's all a bunch of 5'10", 5'11" guys that can run really, really fast. So that's my worry about the wide receiver room. I need a guy that's 6'3", 6'4", and in a crowd of traffic, you can make that catch at the goal line with a sea of hands around you, because that's what it boils down to. It's red zone play, it's third down, and you need those big body receivers, and that's something the Saints do not have.
Yeah, you know, Saints also, I mean, receiver also 4 on my list. And full transparency, they were much higher when I first started the list. I had them at 2. And then I really looked at it and I said, you know what? My problem with this room isn't the talent. It's not even the depth. It's like you said, it's the skill set.
Yeah.
Everybody does the same thing. Chris Olave, he's a quick player. He's a good route runner. But he's, what, 6 feet tall? You know, Rashid Shaheed, he might be the most dynamic player on the entire offense. The way he can take the top off of a defense, the way that he can change the way that your defensive coordinator has to call the game. And we saw that last year in Dallas. We saw it against Carolina. We saw it against the Kansas City Chiefs, just how dangerous Rashid Shaheed can be. But again, fast guy, smaller guy. There's nobody that red zone threat. You know, 3rd and goal from the 5-yard line. Throw that goal line fade to
Go up and get it.
To who?
Yeah.
At this point, it's Juwan Johnson, Foster Moreau. You know,
Right.
There's not a wide receiver on the team that can do that right now. And like you said, Bub Means, friend of the podcast, we had him on Super Bowl week. Bub Means is an interesting name if he can maybe grow into that. Brandon Cooks, I like him as a veteran presence in this room. I think he can help Olave. I think he can help Shaheed. But at the end of the day, I think you need that big body guy, that red zone guy, and that's what this team is missing. They didn't go after one in the draft because you had a couple of them. You like the guy from Iowa State, J.D. Higgins.
I loved him.
There was one from Arkansas, Armstrong.
Armstrong. There was a guy from Colorado State that I really liked.
Yeah.
Horton, I think his name was. They had options. They
didn't pull the
pick
trigger
came,
on
they
them.
went with their grades. Yeah.
So, you know, it's a talented receiver room, a deep receiver room, but I would like if they had somebody who can do something different than all the same guys that they've got.
And look, we've mentioned the names already, or in past podcasts. It's Keenan Allen. It's Boyd.
Yeah.
A 6'2" type player. I saw Gabe Davis was released recently. Is that a red zone guy? Is that more of a Marquez Valdez-Scantling guy that
Probably
runs
more like
deep?
MVS that runs deep.
Not a whole lot there. So, I mean, that's you kind of go into it knowing that. So that's where we stand. That's the number 4 on our list. All right, number 3. Ready?
Yeah, what we got?
We're going to stay pass catcher, but we're going to go tight end. I just don't know how good this room is. I just don't. I mean, you got Foster Moreau. I love Foster Moreau. And he's a guy that knows exactly who he is. He moves the sticks. He blocks. You can design plays for him. But he's not the dynamic dynamic tight end. You have Juwan Johnson, who I think they tried so hard to convert him. I think he got to a decent level, but I think that's where it kind of tops out. He's a decent level. I don't know if he's the game changer at the tight end position, even though he's the pass catching tight end. With Juwan Johnson, I think he's a guy that, man, you see flashes. You see it's a little bit of a tease sometimes. I think he's this close to being a really good tight end, but at this stage of his career, he probably is who he is. And then look, the X factor is obviously Taysom Hill. Is he healthy? And look, You talked to Cam Jordan today. Certainly he didn't seem all that confident that Taysom Hill's going to be ready right away.
Yeah, you know, Cam mentioned it. He specifically mentioned the tight end room when we talked to him at Cam Jordan Day, and he talked about the fact that they drafted a tight end, and he was saying, you know, I like that room. We drafted a tight end. We just re-signed Jawan. Foster Moreau, we've got him, and then we have Taysom if he's healthy, you know. So even the players don't really know what's going on with Taysom, and it kind of brought me back to the NFL Network thing he did where he said, oh, yeah, if we have a healthy Derek Carr for 17 games, we're dangerous. And then the next day it comes out, Derek Carr isn't healthy. So, you know, this time he's not taking any chances. He says, look, if we have Taysom, he's healthy. We'll see if they have Taysom. And that's the big multiplier when it comes to this room.
That brings the whole score up because of what he can do. If you don't have him, you have a very average, this is an average tight end room. I mean, you don't have, and I was kind of holding out hope that the connection he has to Dallas Goedert, Kellen Moore, because I know he was on the trading block at some point. Well, they just agreed to restructure or redo his contract out in Philly, so Dallas Goedert will not be coming to the Saints. They also have Welch, Stoll, Dallin Holker. Maybe something can happen with him, but that's a big if. Michael Jacobson, who had a really good training camp last year, but then really struggled when it came to the preseason. And then obviously the 7th-round pick and Montevallo out of UCLA, who I think is going to be more of an inline blocking type. So this is not a bad room, but I've always wanted more out of this room. I feel like there could be there's an element of dynamic playmaking that's been missing for a while from this room that I've just wanted for this team for a long time, and it never seems to happen. So that's why this for me, tight end ends up number 3 on this list.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned how long you've been looking for it.
Yeah.
I listed this out before the draft when we were talking about them potentially taking a tight end high, but I'll list the names out again. Ben Watson, Josh Hill, Jared Cook, Adam Troutman, Jawan Johnson, Foster Moreau. Good players, consistent players. You know what you're going to get out of them. But are any of them game changers? The Saints have been looking for that game changer since prime Jimmy Graham before they traded him to Seattle. And if you really look at it, there's only about 6 or 7 game changers at that position in the NFL. They're hard to find, and the Saints have been looking. They have not been able to find one.
They were 1 pick away from Brock Bowers last year.
And man, that boy changed the game
player
in
the draft. They had a chance to get Ty Warren this year. I had 4 of my favorite players in the draft: Ty Warren, Jalen Walker, Jaden Higgins, and DJ Giddens. I mean, they had a chance to pick just about every one of them. So I guess they didn't listen to me. Oh well. But look, I would love a dynamic tight end. It's just not to be, and I don't think it's going to happen this year. All right, what's the next? Number 2.
Number 2.
This would be an obvious one. Number 2 is cornerback.
Yeah.
Let's just go through the names: Alontae Taylor, Kool-Aid McKinstry, Isaac Yiadom, draft pick Riley. Beanham, the undrafted rookie, Wright, Payton, Rico Payton, and Fluellen. Okay, so they needed a cornerback going into the draft. They got the cornerback. They got a good cornerback, in my opinion, a guy I'm particularly high on, especially where they got him at 131. But he is still a rookie, and he's probably going to have to start day one. You don't want to have to start a rookie day one. If he earns a job, fine, but I think he's going to have to start day one, either nickel or on the outside. And you got Alontae Taylor, who can play either one, who I think is probably the best player in this room right now. Kool-Aid McKinstry, who we are all hoping makes the leap from year 1 to year 2. I think he can, but he still has to do that. And then you bring in Isaac Yiadom, who's really good depth. But then that's pretty much it. I still think this room needs a corner, needs another veteran. This room absolutely needs another veteran. Beanham, the small school corner, I think he's got a shot at making this roster, just given the way the numbers are shaking out right now. He is a natural ball hawk. But when you look at this, there is no star in this group. You got a good player in Alontae Taylor, a versatile player in Alontae Taylor, a valuable player in Alontae Taylor. But I don't know if he has not elevated to star status. I think he is a dependable, quality corner. You have an unknown, a Kool-Aid McKinstry. Well, maybe not unknown, but you have a guy you're hoping is on the up and up with Kool-Aid McKinstry, and you got a rookie in Riley, and you have a guy that's a really, really, really good reserve defensive back in Isaac Yiadom. again, the composite score is just not that good. It's just not that good when you add it up. So this is why cornerback is my number 2 biggest concern on the Saints right now.
Yeah, you know, everybody you just named, they have a lot of things in common. They're young, they have potential, but they're relatively unproven. They have not proven that they can do it consistently in this league. Isaac Yiadom, in the time in which he was able to play consistently with the Saints the season before last, he was pretty good. Now he had some struggles in Green Bay. He had a lot of pass breakups throughout the year. Like you said, a solid reserve, but can he start consistently for you? Quincy Riley is a rookie, and they're gonna ask a lot of him early on. Kool-Aid McKinstry, we saw him struggle at times during his rookie year, you know. He's somebody else who probably played a little earlier than they planned on him playing because you traded Marshawn Lattimore and Paulson Adebo gets hurt.
They won that trade, by the way.
They did win that trade.
They won that trade, by the way.
Shout out, great move.
They did win that trade.
In hindsight. So Kool-Aid, again, somebody who, if he wasn't ready last year, he's going to have to be ready this year because they're going to need a lot from him. And then Alontae Taylor, you know, we've seen him on the outside. We've seen him at the nickel. He got to be on the outside later in the season last year, and he did struggle at times. So all of those guys have to show me that they can play well consistently because I haven't seen it. And until I see it, cornerback is going to stay high on my list as the Saints' biggest
You got to be
needs.
realistic about what they were when his position was on lockdown, when you had Marshawn Lattimore, who was a top 5 corner in this league. You don't have anywhere close to a top 5 player in this room right now. I mean, that's what we're talking about the composite score. Maybe these guys will get to that level, but they are not there yet. So that's why this is a major concern going into the season, just because a lot of this is going to be learning on the job and improving on the job, and it's just it hasn't necessarily happened yet. So cornerback at number 2, it probably could have been number 1. But the reason why it's not number 1, and we're going to go right now to number 1, that is, you know by now.
Shocker of the day.
It is the quarterback position. Y'all understand why. Y'all understand why. Y'all get it. You know. Derek Carr, unknown. Still a very realistic chance he does not play for the Saints ever again. Incredibly realistic chance that happens. Tyler Shuck is a rookie. Yes, he's an experienced rookie in terms of his age. He's 25 years old, going to turn 26. He's been in college a long time, so he's been through a lot, but he is still a first-year player in the NFL. You have Spencer Rattler, who is exactly 1 year younger than Tyler Shuck, who got probably more opportunities last year than any of us were thinking. Most fifth-round picks don't get 7 starts or 6 starts, 7 games, and he got to get on the field, showed some promise in times, but also was not nearly consistent enough to do enough to help his team win a single game. And then Jake Haener and his one opportunity looked completely lost. I thought it was telling, and we said this last year, that because I'm in a little bit of a 2024 review, tape review right now. If you look at Spencer Rattler and Jake Haener, they both inserted mid-game 3 times. Yep. Those were the 3 best opportunities. Rattler against Washington. Haener against Denver led him to a touchdown. And then Haener again against the Chargers led him to a touchdown.
Yep.
So both mid-game entries, they were fine. But when they got game planned and they were the guy they were game planning for, they were winless. And, of course, Tyler Shuck. Without Carr, this is the most inexperienced room in all of football. It's the most important room in all of football, and it is the biggest concern, frankly, where the Saints are the weakest. Because, look, even if Shuck has a really solid rookie year, going into the season right now, you can't just say he's going to be a great player. There's no way you can say that. And plus, Rattler and Haener haven't done enough to inspire enough confidence to say, oh, this room is better than it was a season ago. In fact, without Carr and a bunch of guys that haven't won a game, it craters the overall score of this room. So quarterback, I'm sorry if y'all surprised by this. It is easily the biggest concern, biggest weakness on the team right now.
A lot of raw talent in that room, but like you mentioned, there's a lot of inexperience, and nobody's proved that they can do it because, again, neither of us expect Derek Carr to be the quarterback week 1 of the season for the Saints. So if it's Tyler Shuck, you're strutting a second-round rookie out there with no NFL experience out week 1. If it's Spencer Rattler, you're strutting a year 2 player who's coming off 6 starts and none of which he won out there week 1. Jake Haener, we don't even know if he's going to make the roster. And so far, they haven't made a move to sign a veteran. So, yeah, a lot of inexperience at the most important position in football, and you could argue professional sports. So, yeah, you know, quarterback was the easy choice to be number 1 in this list.
And we spend a lot of time talking quarterbacks on this podcast. And I can be talked into a world where Tyler Shuck is the guy, and Tyler Shuck surpasses expectations, and Tyler Shuck has a decent season. But any realistic expectation of this room without Derek Carr has to be to the point of, all right, you got to see this through the eyes of learning on the job, young players, and even Rattler and Haener. This will be Haener's third offense. This will be Rattler's second offense, and this is obviously Tyler Shuck's first offense. So they're learning it all new again. So there are a ton of question marks when it comes to the quarterback room. But in saying that, you probably picked up on this as well. I know the comments have picked up. I know that based on the comments, we've seen this. Despite the inexperience, concern, and frankly the weakness of the room, there's an excitement about this room amongst the fan base right now with some young guns in the room that may or may not develop into something. Have you agree with that?
I agree with that. People are excited. You know, there's a chance that we could be talking quarterback again at this time next year. Because I don't know if any of these guys can win more than 5 or 6 games, but sometimes it's new. Something new is exciting. And I think they were ready for anything but Derek Carr. And with about a minute left, I want to touch on a few quick things on Cam Jordan Day, because he said some interesting things. He mentioned, number one, offensive line in the first round. It's a boring pick. He never likes an offensive lineman in the first round, but he understands it because of what we talked about Monday, you know, and just securing that position and making it stable. He said he's excited about the young quarterbacks we just talked about. You know, we mentioned that excitement. Tyler Shuck, Spencer Rattler, he said specifically, he said we'll see what happens if Derek Carr is healthy. We talked about what he said about the tight end room, the uncertainty around Taysom, but the excitement around some of the other players. He mentioned Fadil Diggs, the 7th round pick
I've
for the
talked
Saints.
about him. He's better than I thought on tape.
That is a defensive end with a very high ceiling that he's excited to see.
A lot of versatility.
And Vernon Broughton, the defensive tackle, he compared him to Brian Brzee coming out of college. Brian Brzee, 2 years later, arguably the Saints' best defender. And
look, he was drafted scheme-specific, Broughton. And obviously, Cam knows. Cam was brought in as a 3-4 defensive end. Cam understands all this. So that's interesting words from Cam Jordan. Obviously, congrats to Cam Jordan on Cam Jordan Day. Cam Jordan celebration out at, was it the City Council or City Hall? What was it?
Chamber of Commerce.
Okay. Yeah. Well, good for him. Certainly deserves it. That's a Saint for life, no doubt about it. It would have looked really, really, really weird to see Cam Jordan.
Mount Rushmore of Saints. I'll say it. Greatest defender ever, in my opinion, but hey.
All right. That's debatable. All right. For Andre Johnson Jr., I'm Sean Fazende. We'll catch you guys next time on Overtime.